Greetings, happy coders! Welcome to another video. This one should hopefully be the first in a series where I'll be showing you some of the features of AGDx Plus. Now, what is AGDx Plus? Well, basically what that means is that it has additional features in the game engine. So regular AGDx uses the same engine as AGD, but AGDx Plus has engine enhancements and adding lots of extra features, and I'm going to hopefully produce a series of videos where I show you each one of these in turn, talk about how it works, show you how you can put it into your game, and so on. So what you'll be able to do is download the specific version that you want, choose the features that you want, and then you'll get a custom engine specifically for that game. So if you want a game with which involves like shooting and running, then you can have that. But if you want one that's more to do with jumping or platforms, you can tweak the engine, save memory, be more efficient, and yeah, that's basically how that works. So today, let's talk about what I'm going to be showing you. It's quite an exciting feature, something that I worked on more than maybe a year or two ago. I came close to getting it to work, but I couldn't quite figure out how best to implement it, because one of the challenges that you face is not only integrating it within the AGD engine, but also making it so that it's intuitive and easy to code, which of course is really important. I made a lot of patches, and a lot of them were trickier to implement than others. And so with this new system, what I'm trying to do is create a version of AGDx with the enhancements baked in, so that you don't have to load them in. You can just choose them from a tick box, and then they'll work sort of out of the box, so to speak. So let's take a look at this one. This is sprite mirroring, right? So let's take a look at the demo. Let's run that now. Okay, so I've got these very nice little Metal Slug sprites here, as you can see, and they are all moving left and right. I'm controlling the one at the bottom there. That's Marco from Metal Slug. I borrowed these, let's say, from the Neo Geo Pocket version. It's a really nice little game if you ever get a chance to play it. And I adapted those for the Spectrum because they were similar sort of scale to the resolution that we have here. So let's take a look at those. There you go. Now, let's take a look at the sprites, and you will see I've got one sprite here, 2, and 3. Let's look at the sprite sheet. There, and you will notice, what do I have here? I've only got sprites that are facing to the right. I don't have any sprites facing to the left. So, how do we do that? Well, basically, built into this engine is a software mirroring system. And what this allows you to do is display a sprite with a mirrored orientation, horizontal and also vertical. In this case, we're only using horizontal for obvious reasons, but we will show you how to do vertical as well. You can choose to have horizontal, vertical, or both switched on. And it does it all in software, obviously, because the Spectrum doesn't have hardware sprites. So it does have an impact on the speed of the game, but it uses lookup tables, and so it's able to do it at a speed that makes it still fairly playable. I mean, if you've got 4, 5, 6, 7 sprites on screen, it's probably going to be okay. If you use some of the other features of AGDx Plus, like sprite masking and foreground blocks and things like this, a little sneak preview there of some of the things that I've already done, but it may be a little bit too slow. There are some possibilities for that, and that's why you have the choice to choose which things you want to go with according to the needs, and you try to sort of get the best you can with the hardware that you've got. There is a limit to the hardware, of course. So we've got that switched on. Let's take a look at exactly how it works. It works in a very, very simple way. What we do is, as you know, images here have a number between 0 to 127. That's the maximum number. So what we've done is added the option to choose plus 128 to the image number, and that will be the flipped number. So for example, if we want the flipped version of this sprite, we would use image 128 and it would display it the other way around. For the vertical, we use plus 64. So those of you that know a little bit about coding will know that I'm using bit 7 and bit 6 of the image number to control the horizontal and vertical mirroring. Now the reason that I chose 128 for the horizontal is simply because that I feel is the most common option that people will use, and it means that you can just add 128 to an image to flip it and add 128 again to flip it back. And we'll see that in action here with the sprite that I'm using. So if you take a look in the script, you'll see I've got a very simple code here, and that demonstrates the basics. If I press key right, let image 0 move the sprite right and animate on a timer. If key left, let image 128. So plus 128 from 0 makes 128, of course, and that's the sprite that we're using, the image. And that gives us the second image, which is, of course, flipped. So obviously, if I was to go to the menu here and flip that sprite, then it would he would start running backwards, but we won't bother doing that right now. Let's just leave it as it is. As you can see here, I'm actually using the 16 by 24 sprite, but it works perfectly fine as well with the 16 by 16. I haven't implemented it in AGDx Mini or AGDx Maxi yet. That's on the list. I might get around to it at some point, but right now I'm focusing on just regular AGD and adding the options to that, getting them working, seeing which ones are popular, and then taking it from there. Okay, so that's how that works. Now if we take a look at the placement option, you can see here, so you can place a sprite like this. There it is. And if I want to, now I can press H and it will flip the player like this. I can actually also press V, as you can see there. That's how the vertical sprite will work. So that can also be an option. But if we want him to start facing in that direction, then we can do that. And if we want him to face in this direction, then we can do that also. So it's simple, straightforward, very easy to code, I'm sure you agree. Let's take a look at the other enemy here. So this is the running Nazi. I'm guessing they're Nazis, I think they are. And as you can see, this is a little more complicated. This is left and right code. Now what you can see here is there are some checks here which look to determine when to change direction. And what I'm doing is I'm just adding 128 to the image when you want to change direction, because if it's 0, it will become 128. In this case, it's image 1, so it will become 129. And if you add another 128, it will wrap around over from 255 over to 0 and then to 1. So that's how you can alternate in both directions. Again, that just makes it easy to script. So that's how that one works. And the other one works in a very similar way. This is the guy with the little sort of helicopter backpack thing. And you can see here, if image is 130, and I'm using a different method here to show you. And this method uses the image to determine the direction. So if image is 130, then do that. And then if not, do the opposite. And then we've got a limit here to allow the sprite to move left or right, just like that. Okay, so yeah, there you go. There's the demo. So the big factor here, of course, is that although there is a certain amount of code, it's probably, including the lookup table, it's probably 300-400 bytes maybe. It does save a huge amount of code. I mean, if you're working with 16 by 24 sprites, then a single sprite is going to cost you, I believe it's 192 bytes with all the shifts. So you can imagine that with something like this, we've got the sprite use here, 1734. So effectively that's telling me how much I've saved, because every one of those sprites would need the same amount of data again to move in the opposite direction. So we've saved ourselves 1.7k there already. And this I think makes the 16 by 24 sprites a lot more viable, because when you try to code a game with those, they're very, very expensive on memory and you very quickly run out of space. So hopefully this is a way of allowing you to deal with that more effectively there. Okay, so just to finish up, let's just for fun, let's show you how we can use the vertical as well. So instead of let image 0, let's say we'll put here let image 64, and to move in the opposite direction we'll add 64 to that, so that would be 0 plus 128 and also 64, so that means flipped both vertically and horizontally like that. And then we'll go into here, we'll put him under here, flip him vertically like this, and there you go, he's now dancing on the ceiling. Alright, so that's it really, isn't it? More or less. I hope that you found that interesting. That's just one of the many features that I'll be previewing over the next few weeks, and these features will be available to download for my Patreons first of all, to beta test, and then we'll get some feedback. We'll see how these features are received and if people manage to find bugs and so on. I'm also working on a couple of projects that involve some of these, so they're getting quite nice robust testing, and I really want to be able to kind of get to the point where they're working really well before I make them fully public for you guys to play with. So if you'd like to join the Patreon, that would be most welcome. My school unfortunately has had to close, so it's really helpful to me at the moment. Anyone that can support me is really helping me to keep going and to continue with the work I'm doing here, which hopefully then leads to people doing some more work on the spectrum, creating new games and keeping the homebrew scene alive. Okay guys, well that's it for today then. Thanks a lot again once more, and as always, happy coding. Bye bye. This video would not be possible without the amazing contributions from the people whose names you can see scrolling up the screen right now. If you'd like to be one of them, you can get all my games for free, you can get some coding tips, you can even get to dictate which games I work on in the future, and you might even feature in them. So if that sounds good to you, then head over to the Patreon page. The link is just coming up now, and in the meantime, happy coding. Bye bye.